You had a little bit of a breakdown before choosing to move to Los Angeles.
Oh, yeah, I did. It was a very life-changing breakdown. I was at my job in Australia. I was running the biggest dance school there, their part-time school, and teaching. I was pretty much working like a full-time job and a part-time job simultaneously. Getting into the office at 10, finishing at 4, teaching from 4:30 till 8:30, pretty much every day. And it got to August, and August was like one of my kind of months because you're right in the middle of competition season in Australia. It was just like, here we go again, parents complaining, blah, 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 same old stuff. And I remember walking outside of the building and just breaking down in tears, and one of my friends that I work with coming out and being like, what happened? I was like, I can't be doing this for the rest of my life, and being okay with that. I was like, I know I can do much more. This country is not letting me do more. I kind of got boxed into a corner in Australia of my talent. Beck. Hi.
Hi. Thank you for coming on.
Of course, my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
I feel so inspired by you and have been for the past 7 years, because we met 7 years ago, right when we both had just gotten our visas.
Yep.
We came to LA at the same time, and we met because we were both a part of Rich Fam, which is a dance crew.
Yep.
And we were doing our first show with them.
Yep.
From the first time I met you, I just felt this powerful energy, but belief in self. And I've seen your growth over the past 7 years. And you, regardless of maybe the challenges that have come up or how much work you've had to do to get to where you are today, which your career, you've made such an incredible career out of this life. You've always had this belief in yourself, which has made you work crazy hard.
This is so sweet.
Where does that come from?
Okay, first of all, let me come back to answering that question first by saying that you are a huge inspiration to me. And I know that we inspire each other differently, which is incredible. And that's kind of what inspiration is like not one person, no, not two people will inspire you in the same sort of way. So I want to start by saying that. And I feel like we both have inspired each other very differently across our course of knowing each other. I always talk about firecrackers up butts as a dancer and as a creative now, is like I've always looked for a reason to work harder, and that comes within the negative as well. So, you know, everything's going your way, it's all great, but there are those downfalls, and I call those times the firecracker up the butt, because it's like, okay, you got to put your head down, you got to work harder. That's where that stems from. And I've done that my whole life, all the way since I was a teenager, a kid. And also pushing through when people didn't believe in me. And just, that was another firecracker up the butt.
Has that been like, fueled your, because it has for me at certain times in my life. When someone said I couldn't do something, it would be like, I will prove you wrong.
Absolutely. I'm that kind of person. And I always have been. That is a personality thing as well. I think, but it's also a learned behavior. Like you can learn how to be more, to respond to that negative like that.
How do people do that?
It's the constant reinforcement, like every day.
Self-reinformation?
Self-reinforcement. You don't need to find that reinforcement out on the outside, because people will always tell you all sorts of crazy things. But it's telling yourself that you can, and not just, you know, not just putting it on a vision board and not just saying it to yourself in the mirror, like actually doing it and believing it, and every day doing something little that takes that little bit further step forwards every single day.
What could those little things be that people who are like, I want to go places, like what could a little thing be?
If you're a dancer, I would say like get into your favorite class. Like don't sit at home and dwell on the job that you missed out on and blah, blah, blah. Like get back into the reason why you love doing what you're doing. Like that basic love. It doesn't need to be for the views, for the video, to show face is what we like to call it in the industry.
Yeah.
You know, it's that just pure love for something. So what do you love, whether it's, you know, the basics of that job or the basics of the work, and then move from there.
That's beautiful. So like if you're a drawer, go back to like just drawing with yourself, or
Yep.
if you loved movement once but you kind of lost the interest, then you just go outside for a walk. Like just those little things that can
Absolutely.
That's amazing. You're working on all sorts of kinds of cool jobs right now, and sounds like you're really busy traveling everywhere, and we're going to get into we're going to get into hormones and your health while you're traveling. Something that I think could be super fun for the listener to hear a little bit about is your journey, because you choreograph. Well, right now you're still choreographing for Jojo as well, right?
Yes, so I choreograph for artists, but right now I'm more into the theatrical direction and choreography. We have 2 shows at the moment that are all around the US. I believe we're talking about also European cities and all sorts of places around the world. And, you know, this is like a full dance show, which is amazing. And
I saw the show. We went to see it together.
we
It's
did.
so good.
In LA,
Yeah.
you know, Star Wars, burlesque, commercial dance world, but Star Wars is one of them. And then the newest one is that I created last year is horror based. So all horror movies and all that. It keeps me busy.
Yeah, which is wild because most dancers that come to Los Angeles, first of all, 90% end up leaving.
Correct.
And the 10% that do stay are for the most of the year not working because there's so many dancers, so many, and so few jobs. What do you think is the reason why you have had the success and still have the success that you have?
Going back to what you said about dancers leaving and not staying, I will say that not everyone's goal is to stay and to live and to make a life here. Some people, like us that are internationals and we come here on a visa, some people say they want to do 2 visas, 1 visa, whatever, and they give themselves a time limit to do everything that they can possibly do, but they know that they don't want to create a life for themselves here. That wasn't me. I knew that I was going to come out on a visa and be the dancer while I could still move my body, and I was still young. I moved out when I was 25, and, you know, just learn the industry, and so that I could move into choreography and creative direction, and make a career for myself there. Not necessarily as a dancer. For me, dancing was a stepping stone, and so it was just like getting to the behind the scenes point, not being the star. I was lucky enough to have quite a good amount of lucky breaks. But I will say that luck is not like the lotto luck. Luck is me putting in so much effort over so many years to be prepared for that opportunity.
And I've seen the hard work. I'm actually getting shivers because you work hard.
Yeah. I mean, I'm learning to take time now. Like I'm about to be 33 and I'm just learning how to take time for myself. Wild. And to not always be so head down in work, because when I get focused, I get super focused. But which is a positive and a negative thing.
I can relate.
Most employers would say that that's a positive thing, but as a human being, can be both.
I have a question about that. Do you write your goals down? Like, was that like before you came to LA, you already kind of knew you wanted to be behind the scenes? I know a little bit about, but like, what's your journey look like when you have something you want to do in your mind? Like, what does that look like from you having it in your mind to it coming to reality?
Yeah, I have a vision board that's not as detailed as yours, but it still serves the same purpose.
My vision
right?
board is literally like right in front of us right now, but it's my old vision board.
Hella big and hella detailed.
It is
good for you.
It has like probably, is it almost 100 photos in one? Yeah, it needs to be updated though.
I have about 5, but mine's
Like 5 vision boards.
Five main
photos.
things.
But that might also be better because it's more specific. Like
It
your brain
is.
sees the 5 things, where mine, it's like it sees 100 things at once, and it's like okay.
I've had funny luck with not being very specific with my goals. Sometimes I'm like, you said you wanted to go on tour. You got the tour, but you weren't specific enough.
Yes,
so that was very
that's
early in my
so
career. And so
important.
I started getting hella specific. But, you know, I had a moment last year, at the end of last year. It wasn't even at the end, I think it was like October or November, and I looked at my vision board, and it sits just above my sneaker collection. So every time I put on shoes, I
that's
see it.
good.
But my brain doesn't always read it consciously, but doesn't mean that it doesn't read it subconsciously.
No, I've heard some manifestation people will say like make it and keep it like away from you.
Yeah.
So that you don't. So that it's just like a subconscious thing. So different people have different theories
Correct.
about it. Yeah.
And so I looked at it and I was like, and I stood there and looked at it and I was like, oh my God, like there was one long-term goal, which I knew that wasn't the aim, was to get it done in the year. It's a longer term goal.
Yeah.
Obviously didn't accomplish that one, but I stood there and I was like, oh my gosh, that all happened. And I proceeded to take them all down. And then I was like, I don't need to start the new year with new goals. I need to start them now. Yeah. And so that day I was like, and done. But I'm not a big journal writer. I tried to start just to get most of the time like bad thoughts out opposed to good ones, because good ones I can live in.
Yeah.
Bad ones you don't want to live in, right? So I was like, just get them out. If you have a bit of frustration or if you have a negative blah, 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 just get it out on paper. So I started doing that this year, which is great. And good thing is that I only have a few pages in there, not like a novel yet, considering we're still in January.
Yeah.
So I'm not a big journal writer, but I do like to set myself specific goals. And I don't necessarily give myself a timeline. Sometimes I feel like if I give myself a timeline, I put myself into a box, and that some of my goals aren't achievable like that. You know what I mean? Like, and you know, if there's specific goals that you can control from A to Z, and you can give yourself a 1 month timeline, 3 month timeline, 6 month timeline, whatever it is, absolutely. But if it's something that's slightly out of, there's even one portion of that goal that's slightly out of my control.
Yeah.
I can't put a timeline on it because it's in someone else's court.
Yeah.
Whether that's a job or, you know, I hear dancers saying like, I'm going to book the Grammy Awards so that I can dance at it. And I was like, that's a cool goal, but how are you going to get there?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because that's actually like somewhat out of your control.
Yeah.
most
Especially
of
in
the
that
time it's out of your
industry.
control.
It's like, it's really out of your control. It's in everyone else's hands. You can put in the work. You can become the best dancer in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
But the thing about this industry is that you can be the best dancer and still not be booking as much as the person that is less talented because she knows the right people. So certain things
absolutely knows the right people and has a fantastic work ethic are the two things that I see that get you the furthest in this industry.
It's different for a fitness goal, for example. You maybe are a little bit more in charge of it. Literally is just your daily habits. But
absolutely,
with that, certain things can be in the way
leading
into
yes, they can. Yeah,
your journey with birth control that you were sharing with me.
Yes,
you've been dealing with some issues there.
Yeah, so I got diagnosed with polycystic ovary syndrome, PCOS for short, when I was 18 years old. And, you know, I went to a specialist. I did all of these things. This is back in Australia. And they prescribed me the pill and did all the appropriate tests, all of this. But in order to, it's a disease that can't be cured, but it can be managed. And so in order to manage those symptoms, the doctor said, the specialist said, you're one of the healthiest people that have ever walked into my office. If you ever quit dancing or if you ever start to put on a significant amount of weight, you need to come back immediately. But in the meantime, you can just stay on the pill and this will regulate your hormones. Cool. 18 years old. Sweet. I'm on the pill, even better.
Yeah.
Like, you know, there was a lot of positive things to it. Well, cut to 10 years, I think 12 years later, I was, you know, living out here in LA, expensive healthcare system, and still getting my pill from Australia. So I would dose up every time I came back, stocked up my suitcase, come back, and do that consistently, which is a very expensive way of doing it, but still cheaper than doing it in the US. And I ran out at a very annoying time to run out. I wasn't going home anytime soon or anything like that. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to see how I go. Let me do a little bit of research. And I know my body so well as a dancer, but also somebody that trains all the time. I know my body very well. So I was like, let me see if I can work this out, and did a little research. And when I say research, I will just say Googling, because it's not that much research, but did read a lot of good articles from people that were in my position, just, a few years later than me. So I was like, okay, great. They've already gone through this, and did a trial and error kind of method. So, and learnt a lot of things that I didn't know that I was supposed to know about PCOS. And one of them is because of the insulin and how your body copes with insulin and all of this. I had to not eat any sugar. I had to stay away from it as much as possible, especially processed sugars. So somebody like me that has a sweet tooth and loves a little candy.
I feel you.
But it's only been recently that I really got this under control. And I'm talking about, teas and vitamins and just a very balanced and healthy everyday. Even if I'm traveling, even if I'm working like crazy, I can still balance it out. And
how? This is
Okay.
a question that so many people ask me. So I, as someone who I feel like you've been traveling even more than me recently. So
Yes.
how do you do that?
For me, every day, I take a women's multivitamin, 2 fish oils, because I don't eat any seafood. And it's also really good for your body, and iron supplements, because I don't eat a lot of meat. I am also gluten intolerant and dairy intolerant. So these are 2 things that were very easy to cut out of my diet coming off the pill, because they were somewhat already out of my diet, but just being a lot more specific, and going whole food route. I know that we've spoken about this a lot, but whole foods is a great tool that not enough people take advantage of. It's just
so
anything
good.
that you can just get out of the ground
Yeah.
is it.
It makes you feel like a different human.
Yeah.
If someone listening right now, I know that your intuition will be telling you right now, you got to try this. And the difference between the people who take action and just give it a try for 30 days and the people who do not is the person who chooses to make the decision and the commitment, because it will be a little bit of a challenge the first week.
Yeah.
Maybe week 2 as well, a little bit, but then you get into the habit. And
Absolutely.
it will be
And
life-changing.
You feel good.
You feel so good.
So good.
Yeah.
But
We both, we have a love unconditionally and extremely for apples.
Yeah.
That
But
was
yours is worse than mine.
Yeah.
And you taught me to love apples
I
as much
did,
as I do.
yeah.
But there is
It's because
because
we went to Vegas with Rob Rich, which was
and
our
trying to find
our trainer.
apples in Vegas is rough.
It was rough, but I think we found a way.
Yes, you found a way.
Of course I did.
And they were giant as well. I remember
Yeah.
them being just like these giant, like,
I,
crack
at that
apples.
time, was eating 10 apples a day. Like, we were also dancing so much.
Yeah.
I was probably eating 3,000 calories a day, if not more. Like, I was dancing like nonstop.
Yes. We have a different relationship to food and training.
Yes.
Same mindset,
Yeah.
but different relationship.
Yeah.
And that's going back to when I say, like, you inspire me, because it challenges me to think a different way about what I'm doing, because everyone's version should be different, because everyone's a different
Absolutely.
person.
Yeah.
Going back to PCOS is I refound my love for tea. Just like
Tea is so good.
like basic tea, no milk, no nothing, just like a tea bag. Oh, this is the other thing you got me on. So apples, egg whites.
We love
And if anyone knows me, they know my obsession with egg whites.
Yeah,
Thanks to you.
I think
And-
you have it even bigger than me.
Yes.
We both love it though, but
And stevia.
yeah.
So
I've had to cut back on stevia though.
So I only have, like,
That's the thing.
the little serving.
That's the thing. If you can do that, that's great. But I will like have it in the house, and then little turns to a lot.
So I just do a little
That's
one
amazing.
in the teapot.
Then that's perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a lot of natural teas. I don't have any, like, yes, I will treat myself. My friend and I went to Levain the other day in Larchmont to get a cookie. Like,
Yeah.
but we we plan the whole day
In advance.
around getting the cookie. And he's CrossFit dancer, like crazy fit. And both of us spent the whole day around getting this cookie, which is crazy, but awesome. Like, you know, it was a Sunday afternoon. We were like, oh, it's Sunday, like Sunday fun day cookie time. So it's not like I don't have these things, but in my regular everyday norm, I eat basically the same foods in different settings. Sometimes it's on a plate, sometimes it's in a bowl, sometimes different spices, but it's literally the same whole foods, like from spinach and cabbage, onions. I love onions. No one can tell me to cut them out. And fruits, apples, bananas are my favorite because they take zero preparation. All I have to do is look at it in the bowl and take it, and that's it. And egg whites and mushrooms and like and I'll either like make the egg whites in a pan or I'll push it around and make it a scramble and like put some Mexican seasoning in it so it tastes a little different, like all sorts of things like that. But I literally eat very much the same thing because I found what I love. But I did in the time managing my hormones, I did cut out like all the substitute foods, especially for gluten. And being very careful on what I substitute for dairy. So right now I do have vegan cheese in my omelets because it makes just everything so much better for me. But that's not soy based. And I make sure that I stay away from that because my body just does not like it. Regardless if that's my PCOS talking, regardless if that's just my stomach talking, like, you know, I know my body knows what it likes and what it doesn't. And
how do you, just for anyone listening that wants, because a lot of people want to get that connection with their body, but they try to listen to experts rather than listening to themselves. And I think that's what maybe potentially be missing in today's world because everyone has opinions. But we got to learn to listen to ourselves.
Yes.
What do you listen to? How do people?
I listen to my digestion tract.
Okay. Yeah.
So if I like sit down after I finish eating and then it starts like growling and snarling at me, even if it's not painful, I'm like, what doesn't it like? What happened there? Like the other day I decided that I would get, it was like a pre-made thing from Trader Joe's and I was like, oh, this looks good, a little treat. You know, and I was so smacked for time at the time that I was like, oh, it's a really easy like ready-made thing. Let me have that. Well, had to throw the other half away because that my stomach afterwards was like, it was dairy free, it was gluten free, it was meat free, and my stomach was like, no, don't like that. So I was like, great, never buy that again. It was yummy, but you won't buy that again.
Yeah. And that's where I think some people maybe feel that, but then they tend to let their taste buds like wanting to buy that again, and then they do it, and then it
correct.
Yeah.
Correct. And also daily bowel movements was the nicest way of putting it.
Yeah.
If I wasn't on a podcast, I'd say it very differently. But
we talk poop on this podcast too.
Yeah.
So
daily poo.
Yeah.
You know, it's that tells me a lot.
Yeah.
So if, you know, I have my morning routine and if I have a day that it just doesn't want to happen, I'm like, what did you do yesterday? What did you eat yesterday? Why is that different? Okay. Come back onto the schedule that you're used to today and see what happens. It's fine. Okay.
Yeah.
Then that's what I stick to.
Yeah.
But Whole Foods has been my best friend. Tea is my best friend. I mean, daily exercise. I don't know. Okay. So this is a funny thing that I've had thoughts of. What do normal, that's not great. What do people that don't work out in the morning do in the morning?
I don't work out in the morning anymore.
What do you do?
I get up at 4.
Well,
and I
you're
meditate.
the exception to the rule.
And I journal. And then I get straight into my creative work. So the kind of work that needs the most of my attention. So I have this thing. I feel like whatever is the hardest thing for a human to do,
do it in the morning.
Do it in the morning.
Absolutely agree.
Yeah. And for me, it went now. Workout is the thing I enjoy the most almost out of my day. I enjoy every part of my day. But it's just such a habit for me now.
Yeah.
And the hard part for me is oftentimes the hard work tasks that needs a lot of brain power and intelligence and creativity.
Yeah.
So that's what I do. But I also do have a walking treadmill, so sometimes I'll be walking while I do it.
She's crazy. I when I messaged you last night, I was like, I wonder if she's still going to be awake.
When did you message me?
It was like 5:30.
Oh, yeah. Well,
it passed my brain. I was like, is she still awake?
It's so okay. So this is my life coach told me, don't ever say this out loud to anyone, but now I'm gonna say it anyway. I've got a life coach. I feel like the best coaches need coaches to continue, and it's been so incredible. I told him I would like to no longer wake up at 4, because I've done that for like 6 years or 5, whatever, however long.
So long.
I want to wake up at 5. I need that to be my goal this year.
I thought there was a time that you woke up at 3.
That's the thing.
Okay.
I've been waking up so early, but one of my goals this year is also being more social and then I have like last weekend I had a birthday party. This weekend I have 2 birthday parties. And
you just can't get
if it starts at 8, I'm like, I'm ready to go to bed.
Yeah.
So
and then it throws your whole next day out.
Yeah. And I want to really prioritize connections.
Yeah.
And a part of that is not always going to bed at
5 is decent.
That's the thing.
5 is decent.
If you wake up at 5, I can go to bed at 10 or maybe even 11 sometimes, and it would be fine.
Yeah.
But if it's 4 or a little bit before 4, like it has been 3
that's like
sometimes.
that's sunset in the summer.
It's like if I go to bed any later than 9, it's not great. So yeah, that's a goal of mine. But yeah, so that's what I do in the morning. Sorry, that was a whole.
No, but in general, the people that wake up at a regular hour and don't have a 9 a.m. job, what do people do in the morning? Like, rhetorical question, I guess, but because it's not either of the two of us.
I think a lot of people wake up at 7:30, and then they drink their morning coffee and they go to work. But anyone listening who does that should get up a little bit earlier and do either some movement or a little journaling session or a little meditation, whatever will make you feel good in the morning to do, because it will benefit you.
Yeah, even if it starts at like a 10-second meditation, it's still better than nothing.
Yeah, it gets you to connect with yourself before the chaos of life and everyone else takes over.
Yep.
Yeah, which is probably what you get through your workout as well. It's like that self-connection.
Yes. I've actually, sometimes I wake up and I'm like, I'm not going to work the night before. I'm like, no, today's going to be the rest day because of X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
And then I wake up and I'm like, oh, I don't know what to do. And then I'm like, maybe I'll stretch and roll. Like, I still feel like I need to be extremely bodily productive in the morning.
Yeah.
But I don't like working out in the afternoon.
I didn't used to. I don't know what happened. Something happened.
No.
Yeah.
Don't like it.
No.
Don't enjoy it.
No.
It's not my thing.
You had a little bit of a breakdown before choosing to move to Los Angeles.
Oh, yeah, I did.
So what happened?
A few people got to witness it.
Okay.
It was a very life-changing breakdown, actually. So I was at my job in Australia. I was running the biggest dance school there, their part-time school, and teaching. So I was pretty much working like a full-time job and a part-time job simultaneously. Getting into the office at 10, finishing at 4, teaching from 4:30 till 8:30, pretty much every day. So that happened, like I'd have my daily routine, I'd have my weekly routine, and then monthly at dance schools, if anyone grew up at a dance school knows that the same things happened every month. Like, your competition season, your concert season, like this, that, the other, whatever it is. And it got to August, and August was like one of my kind of months, because you're right in the middle of competition season in Australia. And it was just like, here we go again, parents complaining, blah, 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 same old stuff. And I remember walking outside the building and just breaking down in tears, and one of my friends that I work with coming out and being like, what happened? I was like, I can't do this anymore. I need to figure out my life. Like, I can't be doing this. And, I was 24 years old. I can't be doing this for the rest of my life and being okay with that. I was like, I know I can do much more. This country is not letting me do more. I kind of got boxed into a corner in Australia of my talent. And so I was like, no, I need to figure it out. So I reached out to one of my really good friends and ex-teacher, but she is now a really good friend, who lived out here, Renee Ritchie. And I was like, sit down with me. And we sat down for 2.5 hours and she talked me through the whole visa process. This was in like September, and by January I had filed and finished my visa.
That's
the next year,
incredible.
because I was like, I'm done. Like, I need to gather, and anyone that's done a work visa knows that it is a lengthy process. It's not a quick process. And I just was like, I need to get this done as fast as possible and give myself the opportunity to flourish that I'm not given at this place in time. You know, lucky for me, I had a lot of money to be able to do this, because I was working a full-time job and a part-time job at the same time.
And you were saving up.
And I was
a lot of
saving up.
people will do that, but be spending everything.
Oh yeah, I'm a saver. I don't know how to spend.
I have had the same issue as you.
My boyfriend's the opposite. He knows how to spend it and I know how to save it.
It's good sometimes to have a little bit of a
the balance is good, and we teach each other, which is awesome.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just picked myself up and made sure that it happened because no one else was going to help my career the way that I could. Of course.
Yeah.
No one's going to have your back the same way than you can. You should always be your number one supporter, the number one person to have your own back, because people come and go, because you can control yourself.
Yeah.
There's so many reasons as to that, but people do rely on outside sources or validation or whatever. I was like, look, I'm just going to go try. I'm going to go try. I'm going to go see, find out for myself. And here we are 7 years later.
What I think
Still living
is
here.
so powerful is, I'm sure you living that life back in Australia, everyone was like, Beck, she got it. We'll give her more responsibility. She's like on top of things. Like, and you probably from the outside seemed like someone, you just had it all together.
Yeah.
But it took for you to, on the inside, be really honest with yourself, realizing and almost hitting rock bottom.
Yeah.
To be like, no, enough is enough. And I think a lot of us, we settle with
Safe.
whatever life. Yeah, it's comfortable.
Yeah. You settle with safe.
Yeah. And sometimes we have to get to that point where it's like, enough is enough. Every single time that I've made massive leaps in my life, it's been like when I've realized no more. I will not allow myself
Again,
to like what you.
up the butt.
Yeah. I like that firecracker up the butt. Am I saying it right?
Firecracker up the butt.
That's so good. Yeah, we have to get to that point.
Yeah.
But you don't have to.
You
if you're
don't have to.
listening to this,
Correct.
you could save yourself by taking the little steps now and not hitting that rock bottom. But if you do end up hitting the rock bottom, just don't stay there.
Yeah.
Do something about it.
Yeah.
Take responsibility, ownership, and believe, just like Beck, that you can freaking figure it out.
Yeah.
And do it.
And also to make the changes on yourself of things that aren't working.
Yeah.
I see a lot of people blaming outside sources all the time.
Yeah.
All the time. Specifically as a dancer, I will say that I witnessed, you know, in audition, when I was auditioning and doing open auditions, we were both doing them. I know we were. And, you know, you'd step into that room and afterwards you'd be talking to your friends, regardless of what happened. So say, for instance, everyone got cut, right? Of your friend group, which I used to get cut in the first round all the time. And you'd walk out and be like, I would critique myself, right? And then if I critiqued myself out loud and say like, ugh, I got to learn how to pick up choreography faster. That's not a bad critique. That's me giving myself a note to work on.
Yeah.
And I would have people say back to me, oh, don't be hard on yourself. Like, you don't know what they were looking for. Maybe you were too short. Maybe they weren't looking for an Asian girl. Maybe. And I'm like, well, yeah, maybe. But what can I control? I didn't pick up the choreography fast enough. I didn't nail the execution. That's what I need to work on. And so, you know, bringing it back down to yourself and what you can control, what you can work on, taking ownership. You know, if you get fired from a job, don't just be like, oh, well, that job, blah, 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 blah. Take ownership of what that was, regardless if you think it was right or wrong. Take ownership of it and then just be like, okay, cool, lesson learned.
Yeah.
And then what's the next thing? Otherwise, you will never learn your lessons.
Yeah. And I think what you've been good at is also validating yourself for what you have been good at, right? It's like, okay, these things I'm good at. What am I not good at? And let me take ownership over those things.
Oh, yeah. I'm very like, I really know my positives and negatives within my personality, within my work, like what I'm really good at and what I'm not as good at. And that doesn't mean that everything needs to be, I don't need to be great at everything, because I kind of essentially want to get into a position where I can employ people to be great at the things that I'm not great at.
Yeah.
You know, that's the best people surround themselves
Absolutely.
with the talent
Yeah.
to make everything come alive. So, you know, it's just being fully aware of your positives and negative qualities, which I don't think a lot of people do enough deep diving, and like being realistic with themselves. It's not being negative.
How do you do that if you don't necessarily journal? I loved, just to go back to what you said before, if someone didn't catch that, I let out all the bad stuff.
Yeah.
Because the bad stuff is what will oftentimes hold us back. But if we let it out in our journaling, it will free us.
Yep.
To not have it in the back of the mind anymore. We let it out and it's free.
Yeah.
It can go.
It's the same.
Release.
It's the same concept of having a shoulder to cry on.
Yeah.
Like, but then you're not actually giving that negativity to somebody else to hold and to fix.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just want to like be annoyed because you're having a day and someone's annoying you, and like, but instead of reacting to it, you can just write it down and let it go, because it's just, if it's not going to bring anything, like your reaction is what you can control. So if your reaction is not going to bring any good, then just write it down and get it out. It's the shoulder to cry on there, and then
move on and feel good again. Yeah.
Yeah.
So good.
And, you know, that's not for everything, because obviously things need to be dealt with, and you just don't write it down and leave it on the page to flip the page over. But, you know, just, I'm talking about like basic everyday, like, moments.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just put it down.
Good.
Yeah.
What about those like self-reflection things? Is that just something you walk around with in your mind and kind of reflect on it? Or
I think I do this more than what I think that I do. And I'm a very big person of like, everything can be a positive and everything can be a negative. Like literally everything. Take, for instance, your apples. Apples are really great for you. You eat too many of them and they're not great for you.
Then bloating begins.
and you know, it doesn't feel good.
Yeah.
So, you know, you can be, for instance, within personality, taking it, this is what I believe, taking it as simple as possible. You're a nice person. Nice is great, but nice can also be trodden on. So, and pushed over. And so it's like everything works within a positive and a negative. There's always a light and dark to literally every single quality. So it's about thinking about how to use that in the best way possible. You know, someone might think, so I see the world a little bit more black and white. And I'll just explain this just a smidge. It is what it is, and it's not what it's not. I don't fluff around it. If it's working, it's working. If it's not, it's not. Like, it's very, for me, very simple. If immediately, if there's a problem at work, because, you know, I put on these big productions, and let me give you an example, like $200 or $500,000 worth of lights being blown with a flip of a switch. Like a fuse got flipped. And anyway, we were in tech. So it was day before opening, and the production manager looked at me and was like, we didn't know each other that well. We get along like a house on fire because we're both type A. But he looked at me waiting for me to like lose it. But because I'm more of a black and white person, I was like, oh, well, it's done. So how do we fix it? Like, what's the point of going
I
crazy?
just got shivers because that's just...
And he was like, that was the moment that I knew that we were going to get along, because it wasn't like, oh my God, how did this happen? Like, what did you do to this poor guy? Like, you know, it's not that. It's already been done. How do we fix it? How do we get the show up? How do we get it running? Who needs to stay? Does anyone need help? What needs to be done? And that's kind of how I drive through my whole life. but everything isn't a positive and negative, right? Because then when it comes to me being emotionally available in a relationship, sometimes that black and whiteness is just like, well, it is what it is and it's not what it's not, which is not very helpful. So you pick and choose where you can use your strengths and your weaknesses. That's what I've learned literally within the last 12 months, is like, you just can't be that all the time with everybody and with everything. Great way to be professional, not a great way to sink and learn and love into a relationship.
That's so good. I could just really relate to that type of thinking, because I think that's how I go about most of my life as well. And potentially also in certain situations with relationships. Yeah.
Are you a fixer-upper as well?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
Absolutely.
It's not a great thing either. It's a great thing at work. See?
Yeah.
If you're a fixer-upper,
yeah,
you're like, oh, I can like just fix it. Like something's not working, just fix it.
Yeah. I find solutions instantly. Like I'll be like, something will go off and I'm like, oh, this is for me. So why is it for me? Let me find the reason.
Yep. But if you're in a relationship, you can't fix everything. You can't just fix things. Oh, like you need to be fixed. This needs to be fixed. Like
I think it's if we think something needs to be fixed, it's typically like me, right? Like if I see something that, then it's like, oh, what am I doing? Like taking ownership of.
Oh, you take it personally?
No, not like as in like if I feel like this with every relationship. If I get annoyed with something someone does, I know that it's because there's a part of me I have not yet learned to love within myself. And what I have not yet learned to love within myself, I see in the other.
Yep.
Right? So it's like, if I see something outside of myself, it's like, oh, there's something I need to heal. There's something I need to learn.
Oh, yeah. I saw a lot of that at the beginning of my relationship. Like, whew, a lot of.
Because you're very different, right? It seems like you're so good together, but you have different energies.
We're different and we're the same.
Okay.
There's some things that we're like completely different because our upbringings were completely different. And then there's some things that are the same. And like we're both very attentive to detail, which can drive each other mad.
Oh, I was like, that's probably a good thing. Then both people are.
But see that, like being attentive to detail in one setting is fantastic, because then you see little things that are going on. Like you don't just look over and gloss over it. But there's the flip side of that is that you see everything. And sometimes you assume things as well, because you're just so attentive to the detail. You're not actually seeing like the full picture.
Okay.
So I just think like with everything, with the positives and negatives of yourself, how to look in deeper is just to start by seeing what you're naturally good at. What is the natural things that you're good at? And then just think like you don't need to sit in front of, like, as I said, I'm not a big journaler, so I don't sit in front of a journal and think about my positive qualities and negative qualities. I might do this while I'm brushing my teeth. I might do this while I'm having a shower. And I'm like, oh, you really shouldn't have like reacted like that because of blah, 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 blah. And like consider that, yes, I do this thing one way, but maybe I should do it the other. And just think a little bit more about your reactions and your own personality opposed to everything that's happening on the outside of you.
Yeah.
Because also that is not controllable.
Yeah. You cannot control the world.
Nope. You can only control your reactions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And your reactions is going to be how you experience the world.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So in some ways you can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
My dad will get annoyed with me because he'll like warn me, there's literally a fire going on in Los Angeles, Prunella. Maybe you should evacuate like all of your other friends have. I'm like, you know what? I'll just set the alarm every hour to make sure that it doesn't get closer, because I believe in the best always.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I don't even know what were we talking about before that. We were talking about,
but just like
we see what our experience, what we focus on in the world is what we get, right? So I always assume the best, and then sometimes it shoots me in the foot, but whatever. I think I went on a random tangent.
But you are like a shining light of positive energy. And so this is my point as well, is like you can be shining and see the world like and see the positive in everyone, glass half full. I'm also a glass half full girl, always will be. And like, but there's a flip side to that too.
Yeah.
Like, and that's the realization, is that
when you were speaking
everything
before about the nice, it's like I just recently realized some things about my niceness and it having been not so great. So there really is, I really resonated with you sharing that.
Yeah.
There's always a flip side to when it gets to
So it's just like challenging yourself, like, oh, that's my best quality.
Mm-hmm.
But how can that also not be?
Yeah.
Which takes you to the other side of this is my worst quality, but how can it not be?
Yeah.
Like, how can you flip these rounds so that you can be just a little bit more self-aware?
Yeah. You experienced some toxicity in your dance.
Oh, did I? Yeah. I think everyone has in the industry. And I think it's every industry, but yeah.
True. But especially in the dance industry, I feel like.
Oh, yeah.
I hear so many stories and it can be scary. What would you say is something you have learned from it?
So I used to stand in rehearsals with one of the biggest artists in the game. I won't name names. With some of the best dancers, best choreographers, all of this. And I used to stand in rehearsals with a little book in my head, writing down all the things that I would never do to treat when I'm in that power of being the choreographer or director or creative director, to never make my dancers feel this way. Mm-hmm. And I used to write these things down in my head. Mm-hmm. And that is definitely some of the, greatest days of my life, because I got to work some of the best jobs and it looked very fancy from the outside, but also like soulfully some of the worst times in my life, because I've never felt so nothingy, like unworthy.
I gotta just say this because I haven't spoken a lot about this, but I can really, really relate to this because I don't dance anymore.
Yeah.
When I got the biggest jobs, and I stopped at an early stage, like right as my career was taking off, but it was because I realized that everything that seemed so glamorous on the outside, when I got it, the experience of it was very different.
Oh, yeah.
And I was feeling very small, like you were sharing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very unworthy.
Yeah.
Of being there.
And always having to be on your toes and fighting for, or like survival almost. Like it felt that way when you were in those very pressured rooms.
Yeah. And also like, I mean, the whole industry is, everywhere really, is that you're replaceable.
Yeah.
I say this is a little bit different. Like it used to be, I used to feel like in a room, you could get fired at any moment. Like as a dancer, like if you forgot the choreography, if you made a mistake, if you were whatever it was, which is ridiculous because you're a human being, you're not a robot. But you could be fired. Now I say to the dancers that I employ, I'm like, say for instance, you're a dancer that I employ. Penilla, you are not replaceable as a human being, but understand that if you, and I'll say this as a group, not to one-on-one, but you go with it. But if you take this opportunity for granted and you do not put the work in and you do not achieve the job, and you're being lazy, you're running late, like just bad professionalism, really.
Things that are for any job, right? Like that you would need to.
You are replaceable.
Yeah.
We don't want to replace you. I was like, that's a lot of effort.
Yeah.
I'm like, please just do a good job so that everyone can be happy and everyone just enjoys being on stage, and that's the job. Yeah. That is the job. Don't give me the excuse because everyone is replaceable and all of them are like, gotcha. So I'm like, if you make a mistake and I give you a note in rehearsals, or I'm like yelling something across the room at you over the top of music, whatever it is, that doesn't mean that you're going to get fired. That just means that you just need to take the note. Like, keep it simple.
Yeah.
But I will not bring that into my rehearsal studios because it does not make people feel good about themselves. And then everyone learns differently too, regardless if you're 5 years old, 2 years old, or a grown-ass adult. We all respond to different things. So I don't respond to getting yelled at. If I get yelled at, see ya. I check out. I don't want to be a part of it. I will throw attitude. I will throw like the worst side of myself into it because I can't cope with it. I can cope with all the pressure, with everything. But if you like attack me verbally, I'm out. But some people rise to the occasion. They get attacked verbally. They're like, oh yeah, I got to pull up. And some people just fall to the ground.
Yeah.
So it's like,
I cry.
well, yeah, that happened to me a lot on that job. I would walk around the corners and cry on set of like major jobs. Just
Wow.
cry. But that was something that I was just made sure like never make your dancers feel like that. I also have a few friends that I've told this to that I'm like, pull me up. Pull me up. If you ever see anything, if I ever say anything, if I ever do anything, pull me up because I am a human being and I'm also willing to learn. Like sometimes I make mistakes and someone pulls me up and I'm like, reaction, Beck. How are you going to react to it? Because it's what I can control. Cool, I'm wrong. Which is a big thing that I actually learned as well on the job is that a lot of people in power don't like to be wrong. They'll blame everyone else. They'll blame their assistants. They'll blame you, even though it was clearly not your fault as the dancer. But sometimes, a lot of times, any dancer that's worked with me ever will say that I'm always wrong. And I'll just be like, oops, my bad. That's wrong. Yes, Panilla's right. It's counts 1 and 2. That's what I said before. I'm an idiot. Thank you very much. Let's move on. And I take the ownership because that's something that when I was on that job for a year,
That's big.
no
That's
one
something
ever took
I think
ownership.
generally bosses or people, they don't want to show they're wrong, but people who work for them, I believe the greatest way for any boss to actually gain real respect from their employees is showing their vulnerability and showing, not necessarily like crying, but like showing their vulnerability in the sense of like, hey guys, I made a mistake, or hey guys, things are going not the greatest. Can we all help each other?
Yeah. And, you know, sometimes I walk into a studio and this is what I say, especially in a cast of girls. You know, this cast of the show that I'm in is 8 females and 2 males. So you got a lot of hormones raging, personalities for sure. I say to them, I'm like, you need to know yourself well enough that if you're not having a day, if you're not having the day, if whatever's happening, you know, just outside circumstances, but also inner, you know, it's just sometimes you just wake up and it's just not your day. And everything irritates you or whatever it is. You need to be aware of that and just be nice to the people around you, but then everyone also needs to respect that too. And so sometimes, and I lead by example, if you know, the first day of my period, usually I'm like, like I can function, but and I will say that I don't get it half as bad as I know that a lot of women out there have to go through. I count myself lucky, but you know, I still feel a certain way. And I'll walk into rehearsals and be like, guys, today's the day. Just letting you know, if I'm short on temper, it's not your fault. And I'll put it out there straight away.
Which is so good.
And the girls are like, yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Like, blah, blah, blah. Like, and so it feels comfortable because in the end, we're all human beings.
Yeah.
And it just like, we have our
connect,
feelings.
You connect in a different way when it's like you relate to each other.
Yeah, I'm not going to be standoffish. I don't also need to be your best friend. Like there is a line for me, but you know, I still want to create an openness because it creates a great environment for them to be in like itty bitty dressing rooms together and just like maybe someday someone's having a day in their show and they're just sitting there doing their makeup and someone's like, hey, you okay? Yeah, I'm fine. I'm just having a day. And then everyone will leave them alone.
Yeah.
But, you know, you still go and have your show. Next day you turn up and everything's okay. You can go join in. But that mutual respect of mood and energy, super important. Super important.
I think that's powerful, setting that example as a leader. They say that the energy of the whole group, of the whole business, is often dependent on the energy of the leader, like how they set the tone.
Yeah.
So that's inspiring to hear that you really, if you are someone in that position, you can create that
Hell yeah.
for the entire business.
Hell
What's a goal of yours right now?
yeah. Wish you asked me this tomorrow afternoon because I'm not going to say it on here.
Okay.
And I'll tell you tomorrow afternoon why.
Yeah.
And because potentially we'll get there.
Yeah.
We'll see. A goal of mine right now.
Or something you're excited about. Anything.
I have two separate things at the moment that I'm consistently working towards. One is, within my career to be able to learn and create behind camera in general, because a lot of my stuff is live. Yes, I've done music videos and stuff, but music videos ain't the same as film. But being able to do that behind camera and, eventually, and I know it's not going to be anytime soon because I need to put the work in and learn these skills, but eventually being able to do something like what was created for Wicked, the movie. Oh, just like some of the best stuff I have ever seen.
You're going to be so mad at me.
You haven't seen it.
I have not seen it.
That's okay.
I'm very bad at watching stuff
In general, because you're doing 10,000 things.
But I need to see Wicked. And if you ever end up creating something like that, I could so see that, by the way.
So that's long term. But how do I get to long term is like I need to learn these skills first.
And that's why you've gotten to where you are today. It's because you've been willing to take the tiny little baby steps to get there. And anyone who has any big goal, yes, you can look at that mountaintop and think it's scary, it's impossible because you don't have the skills. Yeah. I'm working on something right now where I am in no way qualified for it, but it's like, you know what? I've decided every day I'm just going to learn a little bit about it, or do like every day I just do one little thing about it. Yeah. And eventually a big project, when it's cut down to these baby pieces, then little by little you get there.
Yeah. Because right now I don't have any knowledge of film. Yeah. Like from behind the scenes, I know obviously I have knowledge on film just from life, but not in-depth knowledge. And that's not saying that I want to be a film director. That's not that. That's being able to create magic for camera is, it's something different. And there's so many more things to play with because it's not live. Playing on live stage is just raw. You get what you get. Yeah. This can create. You can create a lot more magic. So something that I'm working towards now is that, but also a little bit more important to me just to focus on at the moment is life. I have a theory that I live by, or I should say not a theory, a belief, that you should always work on every aspect of your life cohesively together. So nothing's ever going to line up, right? Here's my explanation of this.
You've told me about this before and I find it so fascinating.
Yeah, so your career can be, up here. Your family life can be up here, like your immediate family, your relationships, your friendships, your relationships, your finances, and you can have as many columns as you want. And trust me, I don't write down my columns or anything. I just know that it needs to build as a whole. So it's never going to be perfectly lined up, but it should. My point is to not leave anything behind. And most importantly, the one that everyone forgets, which is the core of this podcast, is your health. You cannot forget your health and your own well-being, because you can reach every single one of your goals. If you leave your health behind, nothing happens. Like nothing's going to be worth it. So when I say yes, long-term goal and how great would this be and all of that, I'm my immediate focus is building everything and having my things a little bit catch up to where I want them to be. say for instance, just because it's a very tangible thing to get, is your goal is to win a Grammy Award, right? And you're standing up on that stage and you have your acceptance speech and you're doing the whole thing and you get all the accolades, photos are taken, red carpet, blah, 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 after party. You go to bed that night. If your family little column is not up there, if your relationship column's not up there, if your health is not up there, any one of those three or all three of them or whatever it is, it doesn't matter how much money you have in the world. It doesn't matter how much success you have in the world. Nothing's going to really feel fulfilled.
Oh, that's so good.
Like imagine if you had everything in your lined up and your health wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
You get diagnosed with X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
And, something that was preventable. I understand that there's also health things that are, you get diagnosed with that are unpreventable and they just kind of slap you in the face.
Yeah.
But, preventable things and just basic health.
Yeah.
And, you're just the most unhealthy version of yourself and you get all these big awards. I know you're not going to feel good.
Yeah.
On the inside.
Yeah.
So my goal is to build everything all together so that when I reach certain milestones throughout each of those columns, everything's going to feel like it's lined up and everything's going to feel perfect. Like, when you achieve something and you're like, oh my God, everything is so good. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And you're like,
yeah,
everything's working. And you're like, oh my gosh, like my relationship's flourishing. I have great friends. Like my family loves me and like everyone's there to support me. And my finances are good and my job's good. And like everything's just lining up.
Yeah.
You feel good in your body. You feel healthy. You're sleeping. Like everything is good.
Yeah.
That's when you're like,
yeah.
And that's what I work towards literally on a daily.
That is such a powerful message because I've definitely been both places. I've been with what you just spoke about, where maybe actually the milestones hitting haven't been as high, but everything has kind of been aligned in a way where everything just feels so good.
Yeah.
And then I've hit one of those goals that I've set for myself 5 years ago, finally hit. But because something else was lacking in my life, I was not even close to being as fulfilled as when everything was in a line.
So it's like longevity.
Yeah.
And that goes for even in your career, you take those baby steps instead of like just, little things like in the dance industry, like, just being social with people and all of that. Like, you take the baby steps to really train hard and to really get your foundation and like all of this kind of stuff. That's going to give you more longevity. This system that I'm talking about, it feels like it's going to give me a lot more longevity in my life, in my career, in everything. And then, I don't leave anything behind and everything grows as I grow.
Yeah.
That's to me super duper duper important for sure.
So powerful. I have one final question for you because this is called Challenge Your Norm Podcast in relation to that. But first, people who want to connect with you, see everything that you're up to, your travels, your cute videos with your boyfriend, your dance videos, your insane dancer, even though you do mostly choreographing now, you're still, oh my God, you're so freaking good. Where can they connect with you?
On Instagram at Beck Morris. And I also have a website, which, because I'm, trying to be a professional creative, Beck Morris.
Just crushing it.
BeckMorris.net. And that will have a lot more information and detail. Like I have a full like life bio on there that took me forever to write, but, just so that people can connect a little bit more and see where, professionally where my roots are from. Yeah, I don't post a lot on my socials, but I'm always active. I just find that I don't feel the need to tell people what I'm doing, which is not great work-wise. And because, within the industry, it's always like post what you're doing, post everything, tell everyone how great you are. And I always
whatever
just feel
you are doing, though, is working because you're having success.
Thank you.
With it. So
putting the hard work in.
Yeah, you are. You really are. And it's inspiring.
Thank you.
Oh my gosh, so many wise words from you today. And you've already shared so many things in relation to this, but whatever first comes to you, this podcast is called Challenge Your Norm.
Yeah.
If you had whatever comes to you, one message to the listener, something that they should challenge their norm within that could help them live a better life.
This is going to sound ridiculous, but you said the first thing that comes into your head.
Yes.
Be uncomfortable in the simple things. For instance, this is ridiculous, but it totally works. If you get dressed the same way every single day, I'm talking about like minor details. You put your right leg in your pants first. You put your left leg in. Do it the other way. If you brush your teeth with your right hand, I start with my left and then I finish with my right, because I think that if my left just does it, I'm not going to brush my teeth properly. But I do slightly catch myself off guard if I, put my right sneaker on before my left, and like just do something different, because if I do everything always the same in my normal, regular day, and like I'm talking about getting dressed, how can you expect to change and elevate somewhere else when you're not even changing or like challenging to feel uncomfortable
With the little things.
by putting your left shoe foot on first? Like weird little things. I've seen something about it years ago about brushing your teeth with your left hand, or with your non-dominant hand, and just doing things a little bit differently, because it kind of throws you out of that sluggy everyday rhythm. So if you're trying to create something new for yourself, start with the weird uncomfortables.
So good. Because then
you said the first thing that came to your mind, and that was the
so
first thing.
good because it's the baby steps will lead you to take the little bit bigger challenges and the little bit bigger. And then that's when we start completely transforming our life.
Yes. Yeah.
Powerful.
Yeah.
Beck, you're amazing.
And
Thank
so are
you
you.
so much for everything you shared today. This was so inspiring to me.
Yay. And to me too. It's nice sometimes it's nice just to get words out.
Yes.
And then not have for a reason, to share for a reason rather than just sharing because you need to or whatever, because that again burdens a lot of people. Sometimes I don't like to be a burden. Can you tell?
You have not been a burden to anyone like
But this
listening
is nice,
this
like just to,
yeah, this was so good. I loved it. Thank you.
My
Thank
pleasure.
you so much.
Thank
Come back anytime.
Yeah.